What is going on, everybody, man? King Recon here, and I'm really excited for this particular episode of the Recon Piece segment, man. We're going to be continuing with our 20th anniversary special that we're doing on the channel, covering as many of the specials, OVAs, and movies that they have done in the history of this franchise. And today we're going to be covering the Romance Dawn Volume 1 adaptation they did back in 2008. I really love this one, man, so I'm excited to talk about it whenever we get to it, man. But the reason why I decided to cover and re-experience the Romance Dawn story adaptation from back then is because we just got an amazing announcement just a couple of days ago. Well, I dare say it was just on Saturday or Friday. I think it was Friday that we received the big news that on October 20th, the prototype version for Romance Dawn, which was the other one. This one was version 1. Version 2, that is in the Wanted short story collection, is going to get an adaptation on October 20th, man. The 20th anniversary. So I have the Crunchyroll article right here that I'm going to pull up for y'all, and I'll read it verbatim, man. Because, yo, this is going to be so awesome, man. Finally getting something from Wanted in the anime, and it's gonna fit because of the art style, because of the way the characters look. It's gonna be so cool having that alongside Wano on a week-to-week basis. At the very least, Wano taking a break that week to give us Romance Dawn, and it's not gonna feel out of place because of the way that Wanted just feels in general, but specifically the Romance Dawn version of it. So I'm really excited for it, man. So, the One Piece franchise's official portal site, OnePiece.com, announced today that an anime adaptation of Ichiro Oda's 1996 one-shot manga, Romance Dawn, will be aired in Japan at 9:30 a.m. on October 20th, 2019. This is part of the 20th anniversary project for the One Piece TV anime that started airing on October 20th, 1999. Romance Dawn was drawn when Oda was worked as an assistant to Rurouni Kenshin manga author Nobuhiro Watsuki. Its first version was published in Shueisha's Weekly Shonen Jump 1996 Summer Special, which is this one, and then which is the one that we'll be covering today in the special. And then the second version, it was published in Weekly Shonen Jump's 41st issue of 1996. The latter was included in Wanted, Ichiro Oda's short story collection, released in November 1998, which is the one that we're going to be getting the anime for later on this year. It also features Monkey D. Luffy as its protagonist, but he is a different character from One Piece, and its story is set in a different world. Using its basic plot, a 33-minute anime adaptation set in the One Piece world titled One Piece Romance Dawn Story was produced in 2008 for the Jump Super Anime Tour 08 event. This new TV anime special will faithfully adapt the Romance Dawn manga story and characters, man. So that's going to be really exciting. And then right here is the cover. I'll go ahead and zoom in, and then I'll show y'all, just in case if you guys have never seen this. This right here is the cover, and you can just tell that Oda has always had the love for these types of covers. This actually reminds me a lot of a Dragon Ball cover, specifically from that era. There was a Dragon Ball cover. I actually have that volume somewhere around here. It was Dragon Ball Z Volume 25. That looks very similar to that. Yeah. Dragon Ball Z Volume 25, and you can see like the inspiration that Oda got from the Dragon Ball manga volume cover, which of course we know that Toriyama was a massive influence on Oda, but it was really cool to get a cover like that. So I'm excited, man. I cannot wait to see where the One Piece anime is going to take this adaptation, man, because it's exciting. It's exciting whenever we get to see Oda's old works happening as or Oda's old works being adapted and being seen in the current light, like happening way later with, in its case, the first time it's ever been animated. But we get to see Oda's evolution and how Oda has evolved over time as either a storyteller, through his art, through his character writing, from whenever he wrote that all the way up until now. And that's exactly because of those great vibes that I received from that announcement. I wanted to go back and experience the original Romance Dawn story, which is the one that was brought up in that article, and talk about it. And because I, like I said before, I really liked that Romance Dawn special, man. So without further ado, man, let's get right into it. So in 2008, the over at, I believe it was the 40th Jump Super Anime Tour. It was on November 24th, 2008. And then it had a DVD released on January 31st, 2009, and was available for order by email only, man. And this is the Romance Dawn story, which adapted this one shot right here. This one right here, the one that has lovable Silk, aka old prototype Nami. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I love Silk, man. I love Silk's character. Now, before I touch on the anime adaptation, I just have to say that the original version of this in the manga is something that I enjoyed because it's always nice going back and seeing where the origins of like One Piece come from and where its backbone is stemmed from. Like whenever you go back and you want to know, man, how far back did Oda really have, let's just say, Shanks and Luffy's connection, or One Piece's themes, or Luffy as a character and what he represents. And you can tell just from this particular story right here that Oda's always had those particular things in mind, from the themes, how important Shanks is and his entire plot related to Luffy, and how he's going to, and Luffy's treasure being a hat. This special in particular, and well, the original OVA with the special especially, really focuses on treasure not being, not just being a thing that is just jewels and or money, but definitely going into one of those themes that One Piece has, that a treasure goes far and beyond just that. A treasure can be something that is very important to you, that it's your treasure. You know what I'm saying? And Oda's always had those themes from the very moment that he came up with the concept of One Piece. So it was really cool, man. But I always took what we got in Volume 1 as a superior version of this story, right? But the anime adaptation does such a fantastic job of blending those original ideas and showing how that has evolved into what he eventually came up with. With the addition of the Straw Hats, for example, in the special, and the usage of certain OSTs and certain moments, really giving off that vibe, but showing you how X character is now rather than how he was here. Like Luffy has a couple different scenes where he acts exactly how the Luffy we know would act rather than the Luffy that was here would act. Even though they're kind of similar, they're pretty different, because the Luffy that we know is a lot more sarcastic when it comes to, or not really, it's like a dumb sarcastic. You know how Luffy is. He's just blunt and he says it how it is, man. And I mean, he has a lot of those moments in the special that really take you back to like the origins of One Piece, like all the way back in the Captain Morgan arc, whenever he was truly at his peak when it came to being like that back in the East Blue Saga. So it was really cool. It's always cool seeing that side to Luffy, because Luffy's definitely become more considerate. Even though he's still very blunt and very honest and 100% upfront with everybody, he has no filter. But at the very least, now, it's like, especially where we currently are in the series, he's definitely more considerate for certain things than he was back in the beginning of the story, or at least he has a different way of expressing it. We know in the beginning of the series he expresses certain, like with Kobe, for example. Whereas now, because he has strength to protect certain characters from situations like that, and he won't have to go through an underlying method like he did back in the beginning, but he's still that very same character. And that was the moment, and the Kobe scene I'm talking about is whenever Kobe is the Marines show up and they ask Kobe if he has allied himself with these pirates. And right before Kobe is able to say anything, Luffy starts going ham. Like Luffy tells the whole shebang, like how Kobe's been with him, and he helped him do this and do that, and then Kobe punches the Flagnars out of him, but you see Luffy smile because he wanted to show them that they were enemies and they weren't actually friends. And that to me was a massive moment for Luffy, because that's whenever I realized that Luffy just wasn't a character that is looking out for himself. He's a character that's also looking out for others, but he's not looking for a reward for looking out for you. Like, he genuinely does care about you, and he doesn't need compensation for that. He does not need a reward, doesn't need treasure, doesn't need any of that. He's just naturally a good dude that doesn't need to be rewarded for doing his good deeds. And that was beautiful. That scene always stuck out to me as being like one of those key Luffy moments. But anyways, where I'm trying to get to with this entire thing is we see in this special that side to Luffy, but we also get to see the side from Luffy that we have right now, and like his growth. And I love how they balance that. But anyways, great special, man. Fantastic special. I adored it. I watched the special before I went to my first day of work today, and it was fantastic for me because I was like, man, let me watch some One Piece greatness so that I can calm the nerves a bit. Because whenever you go into the first day of something new, especially when it comes to what you expect to be your career for quite some time, it's very nerve-wracking, and I'm glad that I was able to experience this so that I can calm the nerves and forget about everything else for a good 33 minutes while I watch this incredible adaptation of this story. And man, what an amazing special from beginning to end, utilizing all the old classical pieces of the One Piece soundtracks to utilizing We Are in the way that they did, and even using certain clips from We Are with the Straw Hats, like Sanji and Zoro doing the same exact moves that they did in We Are, but where they are in post Thriller Bark, and it was just so cool, man. It was so cool seeing that and just hearing We Are in this special in particular, just knowing the roots of where this comes from. Silk, man, Silk's character is so lovable, and for me, whenever I think about why it is I prefer the anime adaptation to this story rather over the original comic, it stems back to Silk, because Silk's character arc was fleshed out thanks to the additional scenes in the anime, and explored more in the anime than it was in the little small comic that we got. And of course, if Oda would have had more time and more pages, he definitely would have made me love Silk in the same way that I did in the anime. But Silk in the anime was such a great character, man. And I love how after experiencing this special and after going back and rereading, you really get to see how Oda evolved as a storyteller, to where instead of keeping everything in one chapter, because you can see the ideas that stemmed from Arlong Park, the Arlong Park arc. You can see the ideas that stemmed in the Buggy arc in Orange Town, with so the Arlong Park arc with how the town needs to be protected from pirates that originally came and invaded, destroyed everything, left a child there, and then another group of pirates is coming in to take over right now. So right there you have some of the ideas that would originally become the Arlong arc. You have Luffy's treasure being attacked in his straw hat, very similar to the way that it was in Orange Town. And then, of course, with the entire idea of the town being basically eradicated because of just because they felt like it, man. Which would eventually become, to me, is an idea that Oda had in mind for what would happen to Robin and O'Hara. But maybe that's a bit of a stretch. But at the very least, Oda had these emotional beats and these all of these moments all at once, right? And he even had certain Luffy character moments that he would later have on, or have later on with Kobe and or with Zoro, but with Silk. And what I really learned from this special is that Oda, he grew as a storyteller in those short years of experimenting and creating these Romance Dawn stories and eventually writing Volume 1, because he didn't use all of his ideas up in one chapter. Instead, he separated them so they would have a longer lasting impact. For example, having the Shanks flashback taking up an entire 53-page chapter means so much means so much. And don't get me wrong, the Shanks flashback that they had, the original idea for it was always there. We see that in the Romance Dawn flashback. But the the very fact that he dedicated an entire chapter to that, and then Luffy set off and set sail, and then proceeded to have grown up Luffy, and we would see how it is that he learned or how he grew up from being with Shanks and carrying those ideals, and we get to see how a grown-up Luffy is now, and it continues on from there. But those same ideas were spread out and not just all in one chapter. Like what we got in volume 1 of the actual One Piece is like the separation of a lot of ideas that Oda originally had in mind just fit in one chapter. And just to be able to pick apart and choose which ideas you want to use when is massive for having certain moments really stick out in your mind. Because whenever you have a lot of moments like that happen in one chapter, if it's done incorrectly, then it's just going to have the impact of those moments dwindle down. It's better off to have certain stuff like that be separated and be spread out, so that way their impact is really felt. And you can continue on with your beats, which is what Oda really got good with, from what I can see, by the time that he reached his actual series, or by the time he actually reached One Piece. And the reason why I touch upon this is because in the actual adaptation itself, you get to see that. You get to see how, instead of everything happening like that, because it's given a good 33 minutes, you have the story of Luffy being separated from his Straw Hat crew to go out and find some food. And then he eventually goes and he lands on this island. And then he runs into Silk. Now, Silk is not introduced the same way that she is right here. Instead, Silk is kind of like in a similar situation that Usopp was in back in his arc in the anime adaptation. And I love how they touched upon this in the anime, because in the manga, the one thing that was missing is that it felt like it was too easy for Silk. And like you would look back on Silk and you would say, man, why is it that she cares about this town so much? Like we see it in the words, and we realize that they that she obviously does care for this town because they took her in whenever she was an orphan. But the anime goes above and beyond with that by saying, you know what, man, I'm gonna give her the Usopp treatment, to where she's gonna go around and continuously do this thing that has like the entire town, for some reason, telling her to calm down or to shut up, or oh, it's just you again, and that type of stuff. Even though she's doing it all for the love of this place. This place is her treasure. And it really makes you love Silk right off the bat. And the fact that Silk owns the Cafe Bistro, and then whenever Luffy actually eventually does show up with legendary Captain Mustache Man himself, Galley, they mistake Luffy for Galley, it causes for some very Luffy-like moments, man. And you get to really see the difference in Oda's style of writing now, or even just going into how Luffy ended up being by chapter 1 of Romance of our One Piece, compared to his original prototype. If you were to go back and reread Luffy's first interaction with Silk in the manga, and then you go back and you rewatch the scene with Luffy and Silk in the anime. The scene with Luffy and Silk in the anime is exactly how the Luffy we know that would interact with Silk, rather than how Luffy would have interacted back then in that prototype with Silk. And it's the small little details like that that make the special so good, because you really get to appreciate these two things as their own entities. It's not just a page-by-page adaptation of what he originally drew as a prototype. This is showing Oda's growth as a storyteller and how our characters would act back then, if they were presented in that story, in that scenario, and in that time, while still carrying the main story beats from back then for some reason or another. Like the shock of having the gum fruit actually being a thing, to everyone making the whole devil fruit thing to be a huge thing, like how it was back in the beginning of the story, to the legendary bullet bouncing off of them and going back and scraping them. Great stuff right there, man. Great stuff. Now, once again, going back to Silk, man, Silk's character and the explanation to why it is that the town means so much to her. Those scenes were fleshed out and really well done in the anime, man. I really like that. Really nice to see, like I said before, the spreading out of Oda's ideas. Like, there was this one particular scene where we have the galley come in, and he is going in and attacking Luffy, because Luffy is strapped together because they sold him out. The people that are the villagers, they believe that Luffy is actually the one that was coming in to pillage everything, because they didn't see the mustachioed man himself. They just saw Luffy first. They were just like, oh yeah, this is the guy that we got to capture. So they tied him together, tied him up. They said, oh, we're going to take him. And it wasn't until Silk showed up, it was like, oh no, you took the wrong dude. But by then it was already too late. And Galley shows up and he starts going ham on everything. Now, one thing that I most certainly loved in the anime. So in the manga, or in the original manga, you have this right here. So you get to see a couple of scenes with Galley going around, and he's just taking advantage of these poor individuals. He's punching and taking out Silk and whatnot, and so he continues to go about that and do that. And what was incredible to me in the anime, because in the manga it was just whenever Galley takes the hat and starts talking trash about the hat and starts saying all these horrible things about the hat and whatnot. He stomps on it and everything. In the manga, it was just that. And then Galley, of course, or not Galley, I'm sorry, Silk thinks back to how important that hat was to Luffy, and like how that hat is Luffy's treasure in the same way that this town is her treasure. And I really love that about the original manga. But the thing that the anime did is that in that very scene, the impact was like up tenfold whenever the hat is about to be stepped on and Silk takes the hit, man. Like, Silk goes in and guards the hat and says, yo, this hat is his treasure. I'm not going to let you step on it. I was like, Silk! Yo, that scene was nasty. I forgot about that scene, man, and when I watched it, I was marking out. I was like, because that wasn't in the manga, man. And it's little small stuff like that, because you can tell that if Oda was rewriting this story, he would have that additional emotional impact to it, one-upping the original emotional entire impact of that situation, man. He would one-up it with something like that. And I was like, yo, this is fantastic. This is fantastic. And then, of course, having the fact that Luffy can't swim and Silk can, so Silk goes in and rescues him, to Luffy going out back on that ship and using the what we know to be as the Gomu rocket to arrive there. But one thing that changed from the manga and the adaptation is that in the original manga, Luffy did arrive on the ship after getting hit by the cannonball. He uses the Fusen to take it back. In the anime, though, he does not. He actually gets hit. But what saves him is the Thousand Sunny. And here, arriving on the port, or next to the port, is the Thousand Sunny, man, with all of our beloved Straw Hats. And they're trashing on Luffy, man, and all that stuff. And you get to see, it's beautiful because whenever you see all the Straw Hats interacting and how they interact with Luffy and with each other, and you compare it to how Luffy's interacting with Silk, and I'm like, man, look at how far Oda has come in terms of his character interactions, and how and just how he's handled the evolution of this story. And it was fantastic. It was fantastic for the creators of Special to add that additional scene right there, because that additional scene right there was big. It was big enough in its impact to show the evolution of One Piece with Luffy and his crew here, and it was so beautiful, man. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and the fact that we are sort of playing after that and they got on Galley's ship and absolutely decimated him, man. The mustachioed bastard that he was. And Luffy even used his Giganto axe, which in the original comic he used just regular Gomu Gomu no axe, but in here, of course, because he already has Gear Third, he uses Giganto axe. And what was so cool to me is that they find out that he's a 300 million berry man, Luffy, man. Which, of course, back in the original comic, Luffy was just a pirate who was just starting off. And as a matter of fact, in the original comic, he didn't even he didn't he wasn't even a pirate yet. He said he wants to be a pirate. Not here though, Coach. Not in the anime adaptation. In the anime adaptation, he's already solidified himself as a pirate. And what was so cool to me is that after they returned the treasure back to him, Silk and the rest of them, they look to Luffy now in the same way that Luffy once looked up to Shanks. You know, and now Silk will continue to carry on her dream, protecting her treasure in the same way Luffy's currently protecting Shanks' treasure with his hat. And I thought it was such a cool moment and scene, man. Because having all the Straw Hats there to them is truly the equivalent of like Shanks with Luffy, man. And I loved it. I loved it because I was like, yo, instead of it just being, yeah, you know, he will be a great pirate. And I hope that and I hope, what were the exact words in the manga? It was, let me see. She says, a peace main, so pirates like him do exist. You know, and she says something around the same lines. I mean, she didn't say peace main, but she was like, oh man, you know, pirates like that, or he really was a great pirate. And Luffy, I really hope that you can go out there and find the One Piece. And it was so beautiful because then we switch over to the actual crew itself, and we see all of them together. And like I said before, just instead of it just being Luffy by himself going off as set and sail by himself, what would become later on known as Chapter 1, instead he's already established himself with his crew. He's already up there and becoming a great pirate. And she's looking at him in the same way that probably Luffy looked back at Shanks, man. And it was a really, really nice, small little difference that would have that much of a bigger impact on that scene there at the end. Unfortunately, the Romance Dawn story does not have the scene from the end of the manga version of this, where we see an older adult Luffy. But you know, there's definitely a reason for that. There's definitely a reason for that. We're not ready to see older adult Luffy. You know what I'm saying? But I'll tell you what, man. From the little additional differences to the exploring and going deeper into Silk's character arc and the town itself and the townspeople and whatnot, and just having little differences in how Luffy acted back then to how Luffy acts now, being adapted here in this special, to having all the strides here, having We Are, all the classical soundtracks, the little small details like I was touching upon here in this video, really made this special a great sauce to me, man. It really, really did, because it showcased Oda's evolution as a storyteller in terms of how he writes his stories, how he writes his characters, how he lays everything out, how he structures his stories. If you were to just take a look at these two, and you were to see that instead of them adapting the original manga for Romance Dawn Volume 1 page by page, what they did was they paid homage to it by showing how the characters that we know from modern day and from the One Piece that we got would have acted in those situations back then, showing that the key themes and what Oda originally had in mind never changed, but the style in which he told the story and how the characters are did change, and for the better. And it shows his evolution as a writer, man. And I love it. I love this adaptation. Because it's everything in adaptation of something like this should be, paying homage to it, but showing the evolution of the artist, man. And I love it. I can't give more praise to it if I could. The only thing I have with it is that it was only 33 minutes. I really wish it could have been like an hour. You know, that's that's my biggest complaint, man. It was so good. It was so good. I had such a fun time watching this. Silk is such an awesome character. Truly one of my favorite characters from these specials, just because not only is it a character that Oda thought about a long time ago, so of course that's a special thing in of itself, but the the anime adaptation really did a great job in fleshing out her backstory, because it's so cool. It's like you have Nami and Zoro in one character, man, and it's so dope. But I love this special, man. I love this special for all the details that I just touched upon, and it just really makes you sit down and really appreciate what we actually got for One Piece, man. And it really, at least for me, when I finished the special, I was like, man, I love this series, dog. I love this series, man, because it takes you back to our beginnings. It shows how far we've come, and just how incredible the series is and how close it is to our hearts, man. It was a wonderful special. I give this a great sauce, without question. I'm tempted to give it a fantastic sauce, but I'm going to calm down my fanboyism for a little bit, and I'm going to calm down. So I think so far for the specials, I have 3D2Y was a good sauce. TV Special 1, I gave it either a great sauce or a fantastic sauce. Actually, 3D2Y, did I get that a great sauce? I think it was. I think it was a... I think 3D2Y... I think 3D2Y was a great sauce or a good sauce. It was one of those two. And then TV Special 1, I think I gave that a fantastic sauce when I finished it. When I'm in the middle of doing the video. So, you know what? I'm just going to go with the higher tier. 3D2Y, great sauce. TV Special 1, fantastic sauce. TV Special 2, I gave it an okay sauce. And then Romance Dawn Story is getting a great sauce for me, man. It was... I loved it. It was so much fun being able to go back and experience that again, man. But so far, that's where we are in going back and re-experiencing a lot of these specials. What did y'all think about this special? If you decided to go back and re-experience it, or if you have memories of whenever you originally experienced it, and do you like it as much as I do? Do you have your own thoughts and opinions on it, man? I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you excited for the Romance Dawn Volume 2 adaptation from the Wanted short story collections? Because I know I am, and I cannot wait for that to happen, man. So I'll see y'all next time. Have an awesome day. This has been Recon Piece episode 35. Hopefully soon we'll be able to come back and cover another movie special or OVA, and to commemorate the 20th anniversary of this awesome series, man. So I will see y'all then. Have an awesome day. One Piece greatness. This special was absolutely awesome, man.